For Labor Day weekend, my mother kept repeating one strict rule. Don't make any plans, Zoe. Just wait at home. The morning of the holiday, I woke up to an empty house, only to see her Instagram story at noon featuring a luxury mountain getaway without me. Her caption read, "Best trip ever when she's not around, LOL." I didn't argue or text back. I simply executed the legal audit that turned her 2-day vacation into a complete financial nightmare. My name is Zoe Jenkins. To understand how a cruel social media caption posted from an exclusive mountain resort in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, triggered the total financial collapse of my mother's lifestyle, you have to look inside the toxic, calculated dynamic that governed my home in Charlotte. In our family, my mother, Gwen Jenkins, treated emotional manipulation as a fine art, dividing her 2 daughters into 2 distinct categories, her spoiled golden child, Brianna, and her designated domestic servant, me. My father, Harrison Jenkins, passed away 8 years ago from pancreatic cancer. He was a meticulous, hardworking civil engineer who built a successful land survey firm and owned a gorgeous 4-bedroom craftsman estate in the historic Dilworth neighborhood of Charlotte. My father recognized early on that Gwen was financially reckless, driven entirely by a desperate need to keep up appearances with Charlotte's wealthy social circles. Before his passing, Harrison established the Jenkins Family Heritage Trust, transferring the title of the Dilworth estate into the trust. The trust terms were explicit. Gwen was granted a conditional, revocable right to occupy the home during her lifetime, provided she paid property taxes, maintained insurance, and never encumbered the real estate with private debt. Furthermore, the trust designated me as the sole independent successor trustee upon my 25-year-old birthday, giving me absolute fiduciary oversight over the property. Gwen hated my father's foresight. She viewed the estate not as a family sanctuary, but as an untapped vault of cash that she was entitled to spend. After my father died, Gwen focused all her affection on my younger sister, Brianna. Brianna was 2 years younger than me, an entitled, image-obsessed lifestyle blogger who refused to work a real job. Gwen paid for Brianna's designer clothes, apartment leases, personal trips, and social events while treating me with cold indifference. I chose a path of absolute independence. I earned a bachelor's degree in accounting and financial forensics from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, graduating with top honors. By 26, I worked as a senior risk management analyst for Vanguard Title and Equity Partners in downtown Charlotte, specializing in detecting real estate fraud, title defects, and unauthorized loan encumbrance. Despite my professional success, I stayed in a modest suite in the Dilworth estate to keep a watchful eye on the trust property. Gwen made my daily life miserable. She expected me to pay for groceries, handle house maintenance, clean the property, and manage her administrative errands, constantly reminding me that I was lucky she let me live in her house. 3 weeks before Labor Day weekend, Brianna got engaged to Tyler Sterling, a fast-talking, arrogant corporate sales representative whose family moved in high society circles. Gwen was hysterical with excitement. She declared that our family needed to throw an opulent, 5-star engagement weekend to impress Tyler's wealthy parents. Gwen immediately booked a $5,000 a night private chalet at the Blue Ridge Vista Resort in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, along with spa packages, private catering, and helicopter tours. During those 3 weeks leading up to the holiday, Gwen kept hovering around me in the kitchen, repeating the exact same instructions every single day.
"Zoe, whatever you do not make any plans for Labor Day weekend," Gwen instructed, sternly crossing her arms. "You need to stay right here at the house. Just wait for my instructions. It is critical that you are physically present in the house all weekend." I assumed, in a foolish moment of hope, that my mother was finally planning a family surprise. I thought perhaps she wanted me to join them for a reconciliation dinner or celebrate my recent career promotion. I agreed to clear my schedule, canceling a weekend trip to the coast with my close friends. On Saturday morning, the start of Labor Day weekend, I woke up at 7 o'clock. The house was completely silent. I walked down the hallway into the kitchen. My mother's car was gone from the garage. Brianna's luggage was gone from the foyer. The kitchen counter was empty, except for a messy pile of dirty breakfast dishes and a handwritten note taped to the refrigerator. "Zoe, make sure the house is scrubbed top to bottom. A certified mail courier and a property inspector will be coming by today. Stay inside and sign whatever documents they hand you. Do not leave the house under any circumstances." I stood in the silent kitchen staring at the note. They had left for the luxury resort without even telling me goodbye. At noon, I sat on the living room sofa and opened Instagram. The very first post on my feed was an Instagram story published by my mother. It was a crisp, high-definition video of Gwen, Brianna, and Tyler clinking glass champagne flutes on the sun-drenched private deck of their Blowing Rock mountain chalet. In the background, a spread of gourmet catering and fresh flowers covered a teak dining table. Gwen had added a glowing, bold text banner across the bottom of the video. Best trip ever when she's not around, LOL. Brianna had reposted the story, adding her own caption, finally enjoying peace without the family buzzkill. I sat frozen on the couch staring at the screen. The blatant cruelty of the post didn't make me cry. It didn't make my hands shake. Instead, 9 years of suppressed hurt, quiet tolerance, and unappreciated loyalty evaporated in an instant, replaced by an absolute, freezing clarity. I realized in that exact moment why Gwen had been so insistent that I don't make any plans and just wait at home. She didn't want me at the resort because I was an embarrassment to her social image, but she needed me physically inside the house so she could use me as an unpaid domestic house sitter and an unwitting accomplice to handle her legal errands. I looked down at the note on the refrigerator mentioning a certified mail courier and a property inspector. My professional instincts as a financial risk analyst immediately kicked into high gear. Why would a private property inspector and a certified mail courier be visiting a residential trust property on a Saturday morning of a holiday weekend? I walked into Gwen's private home office down the hall. For years, she kept her office locked, but as the primary trustee of the estate, I possessed the master key to every door in the house. I unlocked the office, turned on the desk lamp, and began examining the filing cabinets and desktop folders. Within 15 minutes of forensic review, I uncovered a secret paper trail that made my blood run cold. 4 weeks prior, Gwen had applied for a $600,000 private hard money loan through a private lender called Highlands Capital Ventures. To secure the loan, Gwen had attempted to place a primary mortgage lien against the Dilworth estate, my father's trust property, but because the trust explicit covenants barred encumbrances without the primary trustee's signature, Gwen had forged my name, signature, and professional credential stamp as the trustee on the loan authorization documents. Gwen had already drawn an emergency advance of $85,000 from the lender, using $35,000 of it to pay for the Blowing Rock Resort Chalet, designer clothes for Brianna, and Tyler's engagement gifts. The remaining loan balance of $515,000 was scheduled for final escrow funding on Tuesday morning following Labor Day. However, the lender's underwriting department had flagged a mandatory closing requirement. A physical courier was scheduled to deliver a sworn co-trustee occupancy and debt confirmation affidavit to the Charlotte house on Saturday morning. The courier required an in-person wet ink signature from the registered trustee, me, to confirm that I resided at the property and acknowledge the $600,000 debt lien. Gwen had planned to have the courier drop off the package, expecting me to naively sign the official-looking papers without reading them, believing it was just routine trust maintenance. She had abandoned me at home, mocked me publicly on social media, and relied on my blind obedience to complete a $600,000 mortgage fraud scheme using my father's house. I looked at the clock. It was 12:45 in the afternoon. Right on cue, a commercial delivery van pulled into the driveway. A courier walked up the front steps and rang the doorbell, holding a heavy cardboard legal envelope requiring an adult signature. I opened the door. "Zoe Jenkins?" the courier asked, holding out an electronic signature pad and the sealed legal package. I looked at the package, then looked the courier straight in the eye. "I am Zoe Jenkins," I said calmly, "but I am refusing receipt of this package. Please mark this delivery as refused by named trustee due to alleged fraud." The courier's eyes widened. He noted the refusal on his device, took the package back, and walked down the steps. 10 minutes later, a commercial property appraiser pulled into the driveway to conduct the physical walkthrough inspection Gwen had set up. I met him at the front door, showed him my official state identification and the certified copy of the Jenkins Family Heritage Trust, and informed him that the property owner had not authorized entry or any loan appraisal. The appraiser apologized, canceled the inspection, and left immediately. I didn't call my mother. I didn't text her. I didn't leave an angry comment on her Instagram post. Instead, I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and went to work. I called Nathaniel Cross, senior managing partner at Cross & Associates and the original estate attorney who had drafted my father's trust documents. Within 2 hours, Mr. Cross and I drafted an emergency legal package. A formal affidavit of forgery and unauthorized encumbrance served directly to the chief legal officer of Highlands Capital Ventures. An immediate revocation of occupancy tenancy, revoking Gwen's right to reside at the Dilworth estate due to material breach of trust covenants and attempted real estate fraud. An emergency ex parte restraining order and asset freeze notice, freezing the joint escrow accounts and credit lines Gwen had established using the trust's tax identification number. By 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, Highlands Capital Ventures received the sworn forgery affidavit. Recognizing their immense legal exposure, the private lender's fraud division took immediate, aggressive action. They canceled the pending $515,000 escrow funding, revoked Gwen's authorized line of credit, and issued an immediate demand for the return of the $85,000 advanced funds. To secure their position, the lender placed an emergency freeze on the commercial credit card Gwen had used to book the Blue Ridge Vista Resort in Blowing Rock. Unaware of the legal storm erupting in Charlotte, Gwen, Brianna, and Tyler spent Saturday evening and all of Sunday living lavishly at the mountain resort, ordering $1,000 bottles of wine, booking private spa treatments, and charging thousands of dollars in luxury amenities directly to the chalet's incidentals tab. By Monday morning, the final day of Labor Day weekend, the resort's finance director attempted to process the running balance of $14,800 accrued by Gwen's party. The credit card transaction was instantly declined with a severe administrative code. Account frozen, suspected fraudulent line. When the resort front desk called Gwen to request an alternative form of payment, Gwen arrogantly dismissed them, claiming it was a minor banking glitch. But when she tried to present 3 separate personal credit cards, every single card was declined due to the legal asset freeze initiated by the lender's fraud investigation. The resort management didn't hesitate. Facing a $15,000 unpaid bill and an uncooperative guest, the resort manager contacted the Watauga County Sheriff's Department. At 11 o'clock on Monday morning, 2 uniformed sheriff deputies arrived at the luxury chalet. The resort manager informed Gwen that unless the $14,000 bill was settled immediately in cash or certified funds, she, Brianna, and Tyler would be taken into custody for felony theft of services. Panic exploded inside the chalet. Tyler, terrified of having his name ruined in a criminal police report, scrambled to cover his own portion but refused to pay for Gwen's extravagant charges. Brianna began screaming at her mother while Gwen broke down in hysterical tears, frantically pulling out her phone. Between 11:15 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Monday, my phone lit up continuously on my kitchen table in Charlotte. Gwen called me 63 consecutive times. Dozens of frantic text messages flooded my screen. "Zoe, answer the phone. It is an emergency. Where are you? Why are my cards declined? The police are at our chalet. They are threatening to arrest us. Please come home and fix this. I didn't know." I watched the screen light up with the 63rd missed call. I didn't answer a single one. I simply sent a single, calm text message to my mother's phone. "I saw your Instagram post. Since it's the best trip ever when I'm not around, I decided to give you total independence. Do not return to the Dilworth estate. The locks have been changed." To avoid going to jail on Labor Day, Gwen was forced to call her estranged sister, Aunt Martha, begging for an emergency wire transfer to cover the resort bill. Aunt Martha agreed to wire the funds, but only after Gwen agreed to sign a promissory note under excruciating terms. When Gwen and Brianna finally drove back to Charlotte late Monday evening, expecting to confront me and demand access to the house, they pulled up to the Dilworth estate to find a completely different reality. 2 uniformed Mecklenburg County sheriff deputies were parked in the driveway alongside a commercial locksmith. When Gwen stepped out of her car, weeping and exhausted, Deputy Miller stepped forward and handed her a legal packet. "Gwen Jenkins," the deputy stated firmly, "you have been formally served with a notice of revocation of tenancy and an emergency restraining order issued by the Superior Court on behalf of the Jenkins Family Heritage Trust. You are prohibited from entering this property." Gwen gasped, clutching her chest as she stared at me standing on the front porch beside Attorney Nathaniel Cross. "Zoe!" Gwen shrieked, her voice echoing down the quiet street. "How can you do this to your own mother? I gave you life. I raised you. You're kicking me out on the street over a stupid vacation?" I stepped to the edge of the porch, looking down at my mother with cool, absolute detachment. "You didn't just leave me behind for a vacation, Gwen," I said, my voice steady and clear. "You forged my signature on a $600,000 mortgage loan. You tried to steal my father's trust property to fund your shallow lies. And you expected me to sit home like an obedient servant and sign your fraudulent papers?" Brianna stepped forward, her face contorted in anger. "Zoe, you're ruining my engagement. Tyler's parents are disgusted by this police drama." "Tyler should be disgusted because our mother committed felony real estate fraud, and you posted for the world to see how much you enjoyed stepping on me." The locksmith finished installing high-security electronic locks on the heavy front door. The deputies escorted Gwen and Brianna off the lawn, informing them that if they stepped onto the premises again, they would be arrested for criminal trespass. The legal unraveling of Gwen Jenkins was absolute. Highlands Capital Ventures referred the forgery evidence to the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office. Facing overwhelming documentary proof, Gwen was indicted on felony counts of forgery of a deed instrument and attempted grand larceny. To avoid state prison time, she entered a strict guilty plea agreement, receiving 5 years of intensive supervised probation, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory restitution. Stripped of her status, her credit score ruined, and her reputation in Charlotte completely destroyed, Gwen was forced to move into a tiny, outdated studio apartment on the far outskirts of town, working as an entry-level clerk to pay her court fines. Brianna's engagement to Tyler Sterling broke off 3 weeks later when his family learned of the criminal indictment. With her financial backing gone and her social standing ruined, Brianna dropped her influencer ambitions and took a full-time retail job to cover her living expenses. Meanwhile, I retained full, unencumbered control of the Dilworth estate as the sole trustee. I renovated the historic craftsman home, establishing my personal residence in one section while managing a thriving career at Vanguard Title and Equity Partners. Sitting on my quiet front porch in Charlotte on a crisp autumn evening, sipping tea in the peaceful silence of my own home, I feel a deep, unshakable sense of freedom. I proved that when toxic people leave you out in the cold, the best response isn't anger. It's taking total control of your life, enforcing your boundaries, and building a foundation that no one can ever shake.